Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 79 of this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we'll continue with what we did in the previous video by making our units flee to a building if a building is nearby. If a building is not nearby, our units will flee to a random location, per what we did in Monday's video. Alright, all of that said, fire up your editor and let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the editor. So in this video, we're going to take care of what happens when our unit is afraid but is near a building. And we'll have our units locate a building and move to it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to pop open our behavior tree. And in here, we're actually going to delete this sequence. We are going to put a simple parallel in instead. This will just work better for what we want to do. And I'll explain the logic for that in a moment. So to go over the overall logic, what we're going to do is we're going to check, is there a building nearby? If there isn't, we are going to randomly run to a location. If there is a building nearby, then we will move to that building and then we will activate our reduce fear. So our reduce fear will be the same thing pretty much as our fatigue hunger. In fact, actually we're going to use the same task to get that to work. So let's take care of finding our building. And we're also going to make some changes to our Blackboard as we go. So let's actually make that change to our Blackboard right now before we do anything else. We're going to add in a new key, and this will be a enum type, and it will be location type. And we're going to make some changes from the previous video as well based on this enum. So what we did at the end of the video where we set this location type on all of our move tos, we are going to get rid of that and allow for this to control where our location type, what our location type is. All right, so now that we've set that, let's go back to this key selector, and we are going to set this to our building's name enum. All right, go ahead and save that. Go back to your behavior tree. I'm not sure why it added a wait. If you've randomly got a wait there, go ahead and delete it. Okay, so next we need to take care of that finding a building, and that's going to be a service. So we're going to do new service, and it'll be our BTS service blueprint base. Go ahead and pin that into the right window. Go back to your main window, and I'm going to name this service BTS underscore pick flee target. I'm going to move that into my services. And then I'm going to go into that service here. And I am going to start with an event receive AI tick. So event receive AI tick. And I'm going to do my usual casting here. And I'm going to do to both. So I'm going to get my owner controller. And I'm going to cast to unit master controller AI. Convert to a pure cast as usual. You should be able to do this part without me walking you through it now because we've done it numerous times. So if you can't remember, it is AI controller ref. If you remember how to do this, go ahead and skip ahead to the next bit is valid. Plug in your AI controller reference there. If it is not valid, then you're going to cast to it. And we're going to repeat this down here. Unit master, pure cast, reroute. And again, promote to variable, unit reference. Is valid, question mark. If it is not valid, put a reroute into there, then we want to cast to our unit reference. All right, welcome back. If you've just done the this task on your own, and I hope that you have taken the attempt to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a for each loop here. Now, before we actually fill in this for each loop, let's put that reroute in. Let's plug that into there. Let's grab everything, including that reroute loop, and let's collapse this down to a macro. This will be our reference casts, and the execute pin should be at top. It should say execute, so we can get rid of that wording. Then, and I'm just going to double check which order this has gone in, and unfortunately, since I've moved it, I have to go in to do this. This will be our AI controller. This is our unit. There we go. Let's just make this a little bit neater. And let's set these to our references. Okay, so go back to the main window. Yes, of course, there's an error because we haven't set this for each loop here. So with this for each loop, what we're going to do is we're going to take our unit reference. We are then going to get from our unit reference a reference to our controller, and not our AI controller, but our player controller. So get controller reference. And then from there, we're going to get a list of all constructed buildings. All right, this is what we're going to loop through. Let's move that up there. What we are going to do is we are going to set these buildings based on a distance. That's what we're going to create. We're going to create a new array here. So we want to take this array element, and we want to get distance 2. And this will be other actor. And we want to get the distance from that to our target unit. Oh, let's line that up. And then we are going to add unique, because we're going to create a new array here. Let's plug that into there. And let's just move this down here. Drag off of this, promote to variable, and this will be our building distances. Now, let's just get rid of that error for a second. Let's think about the logic here. This fires on a tick, so this is going to repeat over and over again. We're going to get the list of constructed buildings. We are going to create a new array where we're adding in the distance to it. This happens again over and over again. There is a problem with this setup. That's why I'm repeating myself. If you haven't seen what the issue is yet, think about it again. We are adding something to this array every tick. It doesn't matter if there are new buildings or not. We are still adding something to this array. So if the unit is randomly fleeing and they're now in range of a building, well, there's going to be a small problem when we try to get the distances. Now, if you haven't worked out what that is yet, we're going to keep going and ignore that error just for a moment or two. And I'm hopeful that you'll be able to see what I'm hinting at. Don't worry, we will resolve that error before the end of this video. Otherwise, this video would not work correctly. So we're going to go off the completed now, and we're going to add a branch in. And on this branch, we are going to get our building distances. This is not part of the error, by the way. This will work regardless of that error or not. We are going to do the min of float array. So we want to get the closest building to the unit. Because remember, we set it as the distances to that unit. We want to take the value of that distance. We want to know, is it less than or equal to? And I have chosen 10,000 because it just happens to be the best. Let me just double check I've actually put 10,000 in. All right, there we go, 10,000. And we are going to plug that into there as our condition. So if there is a building within 10,000 Unreal units, we are going to want to move to that building. If there is not, then we are going to want to not go anywhere near that building. We're going to want to go somewhere else. So let's just drag this down. We're going to need a little bit of room. Let's take care of the false, because we already have that set up in our behavior tree. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable here, and this will be our location type enum. I'm adding the word enum this time just to be very particular that I want the building names enum. We are going to create one more variable, and this will be our location type. This will be a Blackboard key selector. So I'm going to just put this on a Blackboard key folder, or a Blackboard selector folder. I can't remember what I did last time. Ooh, and I'm going to grab the enum version of it, and I am going to set it. And I'm going to just bring it down here, put my nice little reroute in. It is going to remain as blank. And then I'm going to get my location type Blackboard key selector here, and I am going to set Blackboard value as enum. Also, let's go back there and make sure that this is something we can edit. Plug that into there, and we're going to pass that value along through here. This is one of the reasons why we have to make that edit. Now, let's take care of the true branch. And when we do the true branch, hopefully you'll see what's wrong with this, and maybe you'll be able to work out a solution. I hope you will be able to. And the solution is relatively simple, so don't overthink it once you see what the issue is. So we are going to, again, get our unit. We are going to get our controller reference. Actually, you know what? We're just going to delete that. We are going to get all of this. We're just going to duplicate all three of these nodes. There should be your hint as to what the issue is going to be, because this is where the issue is going to be highlighted. We're going to get a reference or a copy of that building from our array. If I can move all of this. And we are going to get it based on, let's again duplicate this min float array and building distances, the index value. So we want to know what is the index of that minimum value. So this right here, all of this, is why this is wrong. Actually, this is right. We skipped a step. There is something missing. So if you haven't worked out why this is a problem, we go through here each time. We add a building into this list, or we add a distance into this list, regardless if we've added new buildings or not. We are then saying, find that building. So what happens, again, if we move through here, this becomes false, we set to blank, we come back through here, and now this is true, and we are trying to get this value. If you haven't worked it out yet, very simply put, we're adding values that are already in the array up here. So, if we only have 4 buildings on the map, the second time this loops through, we're going to have 8 values in here. So the solution to that's really simple. We'll take care of that in a moment. All right, let's get our unit reference. I'm just going to duplicate it to save time. You want to set target building. Our building reference will be this value here. Let's just plug that into there. Put our reroute in. There we go. If you can hear my dog snoring in the background, I'm sorry. I realized while listening to last week's video, you could hear him shaking in the background, like shaking out his collar. So let's then get our unit reference. We are going to get our target building now. So get target building. We want to get the class of this building. So we're going to pull off and get class. And then we want to know the class defaults. So get class defaults. Just line that all up. And we're going to grab off this building name, and we are going to, actually I found a better way to do this than I have in my test file. We're going to set our location type enum based on this. I use a switch in my original version of this. This actually is cleaner and a nicer way to do this. And then we are going to grab our location type Blackboard selector. We are going to set as enum. We are going to plug into there. And now we are passing this information along. All right, so how to resolve that issue that I was talking about at the start and have been repeatedly banging on about? Well, very simply, we grab all of this and we just move it along a bit here. We're going to break this. We are going to grab our building distances array here, and we are going to clear this array. Plug that clear into there, and plug the back end of that into here. And again, I'm just going to line all this up because I hate how the array stuff moves things around. Really? Oh, arrays, how much I hate you sometimes. Sorry about that. I am a bit of a stickler about that being lined up nicely. So all we're doing is we are passing along a value for our Blackboard here. So we're passing along our location. Let's go back to our behavior tree. Let's then select our selector and add a service, and we are going to do a pick flee location. And I'm just going to rename this so it's shorter. If it will let me. Oh, there we go. Find name. Or no name. Find location. And I'm going to take this loop, and I'm actually going to move it down to this sequence. This is what I want to loop. I don't really... This will loop automatically because the status here will say that it's afraid. It'll keep going through here. I want it to keep running, so it's going to loop this one infinitely until it finds a location. So, in fact, actually, we technically don't need the loop because it'll do it anyway. What we're going to add is a decorator here. And this will be a Blackboard decorator. And we will have this as landscape. And what we're going to do here is we are going to check on a result change self if our location type is equal to blank. Because if we go back to our service here, that is when we don't have a building in our range. Now, on this one, on the simple parallel, we'll have a very similar decorator. It's going to be our found building decorator. And on our found building, again, we are going to have this as a on result change, self, and we are going to have location type. Now, we have a small issue. We have a whole bunch of location types, so we could end up having 5 branches here. That is one way to do it. Or we could go blank and change this is not equal to. And because remember, our only choices are blank or one of our building types. So if it's not equal to blank, it has to be a building. All right. So off the purple part here, so off the left-hand side of this node, this is the main task. I am going to search for my BTT move to location. And I'm just going to name this enter building. So enter building. And in here, I'm going to not worry about the location type because we're going to get rid of that, as I mentioned earlier. I am going to set residence to residence, and I am going to set target location to target location. All those things have to remain the same. And I'm just going to move this along so I have a bit of space. So, the next thing we need to take care of is our enter building. So let's open that up. And in here, we have some changes to make. And in fact, I'm going to give myself some more room to play with because some of these changes will take a lot of room. In fact, I'm just going to use that dark line as a guideline. Okay, and first thing we need to do to make this work well is we need to take care of this switch here. So I'm just going to drag all of this out, and we're going to break that. We're in fact going to get rid of this location type. We're not going to use it at all. So I'm just going to delete that. Now it's gone from everything. We are going to cheat a tiny bit here. We are going to create a new variable. This will be location type. It will be a Blackboard key selector. So let's move it into our Blackboard key. So I did use the same naming convention. We are going to grab it, and we're going to get it. And then we are going to get as enum. So now we have this as an enum. What we're going to do with it is we are going to convert it over to our building's name. So this should say on the right-hand node the name of your enum. All right. So now all we're going to do is we're going to pass the location type into this setup here. All right. So if, and I'm going to just going to move this bottom branch a bit. If it is a factory, trading post, or silo, I'll talk about barracks in a moment because there's a little bit of a second step we have to do for barracks. We need to set a target location. So all we're going to do is pretty much we're going to duplicate what we have here, except for it's going to be a tiny bit different. In fact, we actually don't even need this cast, to be fair. We are going to get our unit reference. We are going to get our target building. We want the getter, not the setter. I'm going to put a reroute here because I know we're going to have something at the bottom. And we want to get the entry point. All right, from this entry point, we want to get our closest point on collision. All right, off this reroute, we want to get our world location for the mesh. That was not the mesh. World location. Get world location for that mesh. There we go. And we're going to pass that into our point there. And we're going to grab our target location. We are going to get it. We are going to take this value and we are going to set our Blackboard as a vector. We're going to pass in this vector here. Plug that into there. Now, why aren't we just using the move? Ooh, sorry. Don't plug that into there. I lied. Let's move this up a little bit further. Plug that into your factory. We'll take care of cleaning that up so it's a bit neater in a moment. So why aren't we just plugging this all into the move? Why aren't we just plugging factory, trading post, silo into the move? Well, we haven't set our target location yet. We only do that on this branch when we get our location. So for our buildings, we actually need to set that value, and then we go to move. Now, let's just collapse this down to a function. And this will be our set building location or set target location. All right, with our set target location, what we're going to do is we are just going to call this up a couple of times. So, for example, we're going to just call it up for our trading post. I'm just going to duplicate it to save some time. And we're going to call it up for our silo. Now, let's think about this barracks for a moment. We have a slight issue. What happens if the nearest building to the unit is a barracks building, but it is not their barracks? They're not going to move to it. They're going to get this finish execute that's not successful here. And that's because we're saying, check the residence. Is this valid? Well, it could be a valid target. Their residence could be valid, but it might not be the right target. This can lead to a few issues. So I'd rather not worry about their residence being valid or not. Or if their barracks are destroyed while they're fleeing, then this becomes problematic. So again, this can lead to issues. I do not want to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of those nodes, and I am going to collapse this as a function, and this will be move to residence. All right. Now, actually, we probably could delete the move to location stuff, or set target location we have. We'll take care of that in a second, though. What we are going to do is we are going to have a check here. What we're going to check is our status. So before we touch anything down here, we need to get our status. So let's go back up here to our set location, and we need to break this. We're going to move this here for a minute. And we need to grab our status. We need to make that something we can see. It is a Blackboard key selector. we need to get this value. We need to get Blackboard as enum. And then we need to convert this over. Actually, we're going to cheat a tiny bit. We're going to create a new variable here. That'll be status enum. This will be our unit status. So unit status enum. We are going to set it here. If I can drag it out. We're going to set it after our reference casts. Instead, we're going to cheat a bit. The cheating is just plugging that into there to convert it instead of having to look up the correct conversion. Just make sure it's the right one by hovering on the right side. Make sure it says byte2 and then the correct enum name, so unit status in my case. And that is what I have there. So now that we set that, we can then go back to set our target location. And again, if you want to think about good object-oriented coding, I've used this numerous times across different parts of our AI. We might want to have this as a function in a function library, for an example. All right, anyway, going back to the task, what we need to do is then get our status. We want then to switch based on what this status is. I'm going to break from there. And if the unit is fatigued, we want to move to residence. If they are hungry, we want to move to the unit's residence. In all other cases, we want to do a simple move to location. Or set target location in this case. So set target location. In fact, what I'm going to do to save myself a little bit of having that note in there repeatedly, so I'm just going to put a reroute into there, plug that one into there, if it will let me. And I'm going to do that same thing down here. I did not mean to move that reroute though. There we go. Now I need to put a second reroute in, and actually, I've completely lied. Do not have that reroute. That's the that is the needs billeting. We're not going to worry about that. We do need the reroute down here, and it's only on the is afraid. So if they're afraid, we are going to move to that location. And you know what? Likewise, let's delete this and plug that into there for now. Just so it's a bit cleaner looking. So if our target location is empty, they'll move to a random location. We terminate another blueprint. If they're afraid and their target locations are any of the other locations, we will set that target location and then move there. If they are not afraid and the target location is the barracks and they are hungry or fatigued, then we will carry on our usual way of handling it. So let's Control S, save everything. And let's go back here. Make sure our status is status. Our move to random is set correctly. So all that seems to be set correctly. And I love how it's automatically correctly updating status to status on all of these. So now we don't need to worry about that location. The next thing we need to take care of is what happens here. Now, for those of you wondering about over here and the fact we haven't set our enum location types, we'll take care of that in a later video. So yes, this will stop working temporarily, but that is a very short minor fix. But just because this video is dragging on a bit, I want to do that in a later video. So if you go ahead and test this right now, you're going to see that there is a small problem. They keep running to the building even if they're already there. And that's because no matter what we do, if we had that sequence, we had something else here, or not having anything up this simple parallel, it's going, I've finished the main task, come back, I finished the main task, I've come back, finished the main task. We need to reduce their fear. And we're not going to do it the way we've done before. We are going to use the same task, this BTT fatigue hunger, but what we're going to do here is a little bit different. And yes, I am going to just move stuff so it is kind of in the same order. We're going to move all this down here. And we are going to do a custom event that will be reduce fear. Now, unlike our other setups we've had before where we have to pause the timers and things like that. We only have to change one thing and then set our status. So we're going to grab our unit reference. We are going to set is in combat. We're going to leave it as false. They're now in a building. I realize a building could still be being attacked, and thus they should still be having some sort of fear response. So you could just pause the timers or set the timers differently here if you want. This is just the approach I'm using to show that the unit has reached safety. And then we're going to get our AI controller reference, and we are going to set status. All right. We are now able to... Actually, no, sorry, I lied. We have one more thing to do. We actually have to call this up into play. So, is afraid, and then we're going to pull off of here, and this is going to be reduce fear. Now, we should be able to test this thing. So, let's Control-S, save everything. Let's go back to our behavior tree first, just because, again, we have to call it into play. And then we need our fatigue hunger, which is clearly a bad name for this. And this will be our reduce fear node. All right. So, find a building. Are they afraid? If they are, is there a building nearby? If there is not, pick a random location. Move to that location. Rinse, repeat until it finds a building nearby. Then move to the building. Once this is done, reduce their fear. All right, let's go ahead and test this. Let's hit play. All right, we had one unit move to the trading post, and we have, well, we're having a little bit of an issue there where our infantry unit seems to be running around, and so does our harvester unit. So let's go into our behavior tree here. Let's find the correct thing. So I actually didn't need to do anything. I actually just quickly came back to the behavior tree to check something. Make sure your status is set to status. So once you've also set that status, go back up to your find location and make sure your location type is location type. All right, hit play. And you notice that our units that are afraid move to the correct targets. There are 2 in the training post, none in the factory, and there should be 1 down there. Yep. So there is a bit of an issue where they're entering the buildings too early. I mean, the infantry unit is going to have that issue due to the collision box, and that's something we will take care of later on. These units got there a little bit earlier than they should have. Again, we'll take care of that later on. We're going to clean all of that up next week when we take care of the fact that if we test out our move to residence for fatigue or hunger, that we're going to run into some issues. So we'll take care of that all in one fell swoop, hopefully. And from there, well, we now have a working AI system for our fatigue with some changes in hunger and our fear. All right, so all of that said, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you've learned something and have found it interesting. As always, if you've liked these videos, make sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help me out a lot. It helps get this channel out there, and it helps with the YouTube algorithms. All of that said, make sure to hit the subscribe button and notify icon so you know when the next tutorial is out. If you want to support this channel further, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. There are links in the little tag card at the end and in the description. At the upper levels, you will get access to the completed project, so this file when the tutorial is done. And at a level above that, you will get access to the in-progress file, so the one I use for recordings. And, as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.